Fox News alert: the U.S. military conducting new strikes in Iran. Quote, U.S. Central Command forces began launching self-defense strikes against Iran at 5 p.m. Eastern today at the commander-in-chief's direction in response to yesterday's downing of a U.S. Army Apache helicopter. The mission is a proportional response to unjustified Iranian aggression. So, Dana Perino. Oh, we have Jennifer. Let's go to Jennifer.
Hi, Jesse. Well, we've just gotten word that based on that CENTCOM statement, we had extended this. The president had indicated that he must respond, given that there were 2 Americans in that Apache helicopter that had to be rescued at sea earlier today. So we were expecting this. But what's interesting from the statement that CENTCOM just put out is that it described these as defensive strikes, and they said that they would be proportional. So what we're looking at right now, there are some indications there's some explosions in a port city called Sirik. We're getting the initial reports of ongoing strikes from the Iranians themselves. The Iranian foreign minister earlier today had warned that if the U.S. escalated, there would be a very, very big response. The foreign ministry had been putting out statements suggesting that maybe the Iranians had not put any drones up in the air over the Strait of Hormuz in the last 24 hours. But we know from U.S. defense officials that they saw multiple drones fired by the Iranians over the Strait of Hormuz, and that one of those drones, in fact, hit the Apache helicopter, which was flying low to the water when it was struck. But the Apache itself was hit by one of those Shahed drones. The 2 crew members who were rescued are safe right now. They are stable. But what is notable is that they were rescued by this autonomous drone, this surface vessel. It's the first time that a Corsair is a 24-foot sea drone. It was sent to rescue these 2 crewmen who were in the water for 2 hours. But that was the quickest and safest way to rescue those 2 airmen who went down with the Apache helicopter. But it made history in terms of the rescue, because this Corsair, which is made by the company Saronic, and it's the first time we've ever heard that it's been used for this kind of a rescue, and no other military has this kind of a vessel. It's really an extraordinary vessel because it can carry a 1,000-pound payload. It can go 1,000 nautical miles. And now we know it can rescue airmen who are out at sea. So we'll bring you more when we know more. But the CENTCOM said that these strikes started about 28 minutes ago. They are ongoing. They are not complete. And there are indications that there are multiple KC-135 refueling planes that are flying over the Middle East right now. That would suggest that there are a large number of war planes that would require refueling over that area. Jesse.
Jennifer, thank you so much. This comes on the heels of that amazing other rescue mission that we had a couple months ago when those 2 fighter jet pilots went down. And we barreled right into the heart of the beast and got them out. And just another great precision rescue.
And it is interesting that it was done by an unmanned vehicle. That is significant, and what an achievement, I think, also for the United States military. I think the ceasefire has been fake all along, but we've been super tolerant. But President Trump said, if you do this, I will hit you back, and that's how strong leaders lead. It's like, okay, well, here you go. You asked for it, and I don't know if that gets anybody back to the negotiating table. I think that the ceasefire is kaput for now.
The president the other day said, Greg, a ceasefire in this part of the world is when they shoot at each other kind of moderately.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think nobody was taking it seriously. I think this autonomous drone rescue is pretty much of a big deal. I mean, that's the only, I guess, upside to war is these new breakthroughs. But it has a 1,000-pound payload. That's basically like 5 airmen or 3 cast members of The View. So I worked all the way to get to that joke. But I do feel like this war, and this is on me. It's not on the. It's like I feel like it's the show Survivor, where it just keeps going on and on. What series are we on now? Maybe 20 years ago, I wouldn't be this impatient or this jaded. I don't know what happened, but it feels like we have such a short, maybe it's healthy. We have just a short fuse for this stuff. And I think the Russia-Ukraine war kind of just like that thing's been going on for almost 5 years now,
Wow.
4.5 years, that we've kind of just like started to treat war like something in the background, which is not really good.
Well, luckily, this operation, we've had very few casualties.
That is
and
true.
Hopefully, we keep it that way. Harold.
I don't know if Jennifer's still with us, but I was curious. I imagine because of our response and the way it was proportional, she said it was a port city, it was expected. But at one point earlier today, we thought this might have been an accident on the part of the Iranians. So clearly, I assume because of our reaction and the ongoing attacks there, that is not the case. I guess the questions I would have would be, does this escalate? To what extent does this escalate the attacks from Iran on our allies in the region? And for that matter, does it restart? Are we going to restart military activities? Now, I want to be very clear. I thought we never should have stopped our military activities, even while negotiations were underway, just to ensure that the Iranians knew how serious and how meaningful how intentional we are in wanting to ensure they get no weapons, that they can't develop a nuclear weapon. But I'm curious if Jennifer's still there. What does she think how much of an impact does this have on negotiations between us and the Iranians, for that matter, between our Gulf allies and us?
Yeah, the President Kennedy has been so patient during the ceasefire and has really given peace a chance. And everybody's wondering, how long is it going to take before he kind of changes things up?
Well, Jesse, I always like to provide Rachel Maddow with some talking points. I realize she only works one day a week. But this is obviously the President of the United States just changing the subject after the rain of boos at last night's NBA Finals game. No, but it's, I think that this is an important point in this incursion. I think that, an unmanned maritime drone vehicle, that's really fascinating. And it just goes to show where the development has been in the military, because there's been a lot of discussion about using, a $2 to $3 million missile to shoot down a $30,000 drone. So as the military under Pete Hegseth has been working diligently to expand our counter-drone technology. This is one of the projects, obviously, that is far less expensive than some of the traditional items of warfare that we have seen. And it will also be a very interesting tipping point, not just in terms of drone technology and how we fight our enemies, but how do the hawks in this administration respond here? Do they use this as an entree to expand the fighting? Or is this going to be something that is quick, dirty, and precise to get all the parties back to the negotiating table? So in that sense, it could be an important inflection point.
It appears that the only thing that's preventing us from based on reporting, and the President's not calling me and sharing any information, nor is Mr. Witkoff or Mr. Kushner, but it appears that the real sticking point here is the nuclear dust and their ability and capacity to develop a nuclear weapon. We put on the table a 20-year plan for them to suspend and not pursue any kind of nuclear weapon. They came back with a 10-year. That's what the reporting suggests. And now we may be at we may be able to settle at 15 years. But what I can't quite get my head around and my arms around, they are still launching ballistic missiles. And they clearly have some military capacity because they are the Iranians, that is. So I'm curious, as we think about all this, as the negotiations are underway, I'm sure the President and the team are thinking about this. But if they can still launch a ballistic missile and still attack an Apache helicopter, maybe they're not as weakened as we think, which again is why I believe that the military attacks on our part should not stop as we go through these negotiations, because I think it puts even more pressure on them and gives us more leverage in those negotiations.
Yeah, the President indicated that he does not want to resume major combat operations. He said if we did do that, you'd have the strait closed for another 2 to 3 to 4 months, and he doesn't want that. And he keeps saying we're very close, we're days away, and I don't know what that means. We've heard that for a very long time.
Right.
I mean, oil has gone down. It was closed at, I think, 89 today, but gas prices are very high, and there's a lot of people in the administration, I think, that would like to see the job finished, and others think that, we're pretty close. But what do we know?
That has never stopped us.
Yeah.
Too bad they demonized Tesla, Jesse.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.